Hello everyone, I'm Jerome Harris from eprophetic.com. Today it's September the 12th of 2018, and there's a major hurricane headed for the East Coast. It's headed also in my direction. I do not believe that where I live will get the brunt of it. Those states south of here, which is Virginia, namely North Carolina and South Carolina, and now Georgia, they're going to get the brunt of it. So we're looking here late Thursday night, early Friday morning, expecting landfall. So if any of you are in the path of that hurricane, please take precautions. I have the television on here. I'm going to turn the volume down now. Watching the news and the weather, and what's really concerning to me is the attitude of individuals who place their property above their lives, and the reasoning individuals are giving for staying in the path of a major and potentially deadly hurricane. It's amazing. One guy was arrogant. He said, "Bring it on," and he didn't appear to be drunk or anything, or that he had been drinking. It's just this arrogant attitude that he is going to survive forces of the Most High God. Now, hurricanes are not for the purpose of hurting anyone. That's just the way the earth relieves pressure. And as King Solomon had mentioned, he said that unforeseen occurrences befall all of us. So you wake up tomorrow morning, say going to work or some other activity of your day, and you get hit by a bus. That wasn't planned. It just, things just happen. And bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. And you just never know how things will pan out from day to day. Another individual gave a reason for staying was because he said that he survived hurricanes in the past. Well, that's playing Russian roulette. Now, there are individuals who just can't afford to leave. They have no money, they have no resources to get out of harm's way, so they hunker down and hope for the best. And so you have those individuals who slip through the cracks. They're usually the elderly that they live alone. No one knows about them. They may live out in some secluded area, and eventually they end up losing their lives. But it just shows, for most, a lack of humility with things that are much bigger than us. Okay, so in this video, I want to talk about freedom compared to the other things that Christ talked about. Now, keep in mind that I am a staunch defender of the teachings of Christ, not a defender of the teachings of religious organizations or even a book called the Bible. The Bible is not my teacher. My teacher is a person, a living being, and his name, commonly known to the world, is Jesus Christ. Now, I don't believe that's his name in heaven. I believe the name he has in heaven is the name that he has now, since he's returned back to his original station. And I'll talk about what I think that name is in another video. But for the sake of this video, I'll refer to him as Jesus and or Christ or Jesus. Now, I have some notes over here on the screen. I also have my Bible here. So if you see me looking off the camera, it's because I'm looking at my notes and I'm looking at my screen here to make sure that I've covered everything. So how important is freedom in our worship to God? When we think of the teachings of Jesus Christ, typically people think of keywords such as love, faith, truth, but freedom is something that you really hear people talk about. Yet, I'm going to read this off the screen here because these are my notes. Freedom, like faith, love, and truth, is an essential part of our worship to God. Where freedom prevails, faith, love, and truth prosper. when freedom is lacking, things suffer. So the freedom that Jesus spoke of was for the purpose of his followers being able to fully express love, faith, freedom, and his truth. Then if freedom is hindered, then so is faith, love, and truth. And what we're seeing occurring on earth today, I have this remote control, I'm going to set it down, is that government, individuals, religious organizations have, and they continue to restrict, hinder, or even prevent that freedom because they want control over your lives. When it comes to Caesar, that's the governments, they want loyalty and allegiance. And so you must think a certain way. We have, say, the American government. Americans tend to think a certain way. Russians tend to think a certain way. The Chinese government and the Chinese people tend to think a certain way. So each one, each nation, each government, their citizens have different mindsets. And that's why the world is divided, because we have all these different governments, each one thinking their way is right and the others are wrong. And that's just the way things are. And there's a reason why that is the case, and it deals with mainly that this is Satan's world. I had made mention before that Jesus had mentioned there, John chapter 18, verse 36, that his kingdom is not of this world. So my question to those of you who are listening, can we reasonably expect anything good and godly to rise up out of a world that Jesus said that his kingdom is no part of? And my answer to you, and my strong belief, is no. Nothing existing on the earth today is of God. I'm referring to nations, governments, religions. None of those things are from God. None of them. This world is not about freedom. This world is about power and control. Think about this. What is the number one thing that people fight and rebel about? Being free. Why? Because this world is not a place of freedom. If Jesus' kingdom was of this world, then everyone in it would have the same mindset, would be loving towards one another, respectful towards one another, and also freely express their faith, their love, and speak of Jesus and his truth. That does not exist because this world is not, Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. This is Satan's world. So what is occurring right now within the religious organizations of the world? There is an ecclesiastical domination over the lives and faiths of individuals. It really boils down to that. And so it's important for those of us who are proclaimers and worshipers of God and followers of Christ that we understand that and realize the wilderness that we are in. We are not within Christ's kingdom. Like I said before, he said his kingdom isn't part of this world. So if his kingdom isn't dominating, whose kingdom is? Satan. And also men have kingdoms on the earth, but Satan is above them and he controls them. He manipulates them for the purpose of dividing the world so that there is no uniting, no coming together. There are wars. I mentioned before also in previous videos that the real dichotomy is that in a world so full of religion, it is a dangerous place to live. You see, it shouldn't be that. If all these religions were of God and they all talk a good game, they really do, it's all superficial, you would think that the world would be a safe and peaceful place. It's not. Even those of the extremist religions, Islam has an extreme faction, Christianity has an extreme faction, because Christianity presents itself as individuals walking around with shirts and ties and suits, doesn't mean that it doesn't have that dark side, that that fundamentalist extremist side, because it was a Christian nation that dropped 2 atomic bombs. These are weapons of mass destruction, the worst ever created, up on a nation. So terrorism is relative. And these religions are so lopsided in their thinking towards one another. One will say, well, those Muslims are terrorists. Well, I know a lot of good Muslims. I mean, a lot of them. I know a lot of good Christians too. But on the same token, you'll find that out of all the religions of the world, Christianity has been the most deadly towards the human family. The most deadly. It's just that the news today hypes up Islam as being terrorists. But yet when you add up all the numbers, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, and the conflicts today are by these so-called Christian nations who hide behind being godly, and they want to pull God into their evil doing as to somehow convince people that they're doing God's will, or that they have God's backing. Man, don't fall for that. If you have the mind of Christ, you know that that's evil. Anytime innocent lives are being taken, no matter who does it, whether it's those who call themselves Christians or those who call themselves Muslims, those bad sectors of those religions, that's unacceptable. That's untenable. And again, these things rise up out of Satan's world. That's why they are in place to exercise power and control over Christ's property. We, each and every individual ever born on this earth, from Adam or even before Adam, belong to Christ, whether they have known him or not. He purchased mankind with his death. That's what makes him Lord, Master, and our owner, our head. We are his property. He paid the price so that we would live. He didn't ask anything in return for that. It's a free gift. That's what grace is. We have been given something by grace. Grace is simply an act of kindness that's not deserved. Yet, what Satan's religions have done, they have usurped that and they've twisted it and says, well, no, not unless you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Jesus didn't teach that. I'm sorry, he didn't teach that. He didn't die just for those who call themselves Christians. He died for each and every individual ever born on this earth. That includes Adam too, and his wife Eve. We have to keep in mind where we are existing. We are existing in the wilderness, and within that wilderness, we're going to be approached just like Christ was approached by the devil when he was in that wilderness. When we are at our weakest, when we're hungry, when we're down on our luck, he'll put things before you. He'll give you fame. He'll give you power. He knows what buttons to push. This Satan is an incredibly intelligent, wise, and powerful spirit creature. Don't underestimate his power. The news media, the entertainment industry, and religions paint him in ways that he's unlike. He's totally different from the way they portray him. They portray him as some hideous-looking creature who's ugly, who tends not to have a lot of intelligence. This creature, who I believe was the second creation by God, burns with intelligence, and no pun intended. He is extremely intelligent. But yet people think because they have religion that they're somehow immune from his advances. No. You're always Satan already has 99.9% of the world already, because the world is his. He already has the world convinced that any religion that they're involved in, any political party that they're involved in, this is all a part of life. And that this constant fighting and bickering between people back and forth, whether you're within a nation or between the nations, contending and fighting because people want to be free. You see, if this was Christ's world, these things would not exist. People would be free. that people today are not free is why they're fighting, because that's what they want. They want freedom. Satan already has the world. People have to rise up and recognize that fact. Religion cloaks that. They prevent people from seeing that truth, and that's why they exist. Remember now, we know that 1 Corinthians chapter 15, I believe it is, we're told, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 15, we're told that Satan has transformed himself into an angel of light. It's not that he will, he already has. He's transformed himself into an angel of light, of illumination, of appearing to be good and doing beneficials for mankind. Satan is capable of doing good things, but for an end purpose. You see, I know people who have done good things to me, but in the long run, those good things were done to dupe me and to stab me in the back. So there were evil intentions in the good or the acts of kindness that people displayed. So we must be careful, very careful. The problem today is that many people are not careful. They have fallen asleep. And Jesus commanded his followers to stay awake, to keep awake, because you do not know when your Lord or your Master is going to return. But yet there are organizations, namely the Watchtower, that teaches that they know when he returned, and they give that year as 1914. Well, that's not what Jesus says. Look up those three scriptures, and in all three, Jesus is speaking. And he's saying that even he himself don't know when he's going to return. So how can man and religious organizations know something Jesus himself says that even he doesn't know? He doesn't know when he's going to return. So how can these religious organizations of men know this? Because they have been raised up by Satan the devil, all of them. They lie. And they place themselves as, they make themselves messiahs, false Christ, even though that's not what their title is. But if any organization claims to know something that Jesus himself says that even he himself doesn't know, or if they teach something that Jesus himself didn't teach, then what they're doing is they're positioning themselves as a proverbial false Christ, a proverbial false Messiah. False means to lie, to mislead, to deceive. And again, all these things rose up from the dust of the earth, of the world rather, of Satan's world. Christ's kingdom is no part of this world, nothing in it. But if you look around the world, look at all the magnificence of cities and these so-called technological advances. That shows how powerful Satan is. You ever fly at 30,000 feet on a clear night, and you look down on a city such as Paris or New York or Chicago, or you look out at the expanse of lights? Isn't that beautiful? That's all from Satan. That shows what he can do. He's an angel of light. He can do these things, and he has done them. So that's basically what I want to bring to your attention here, that freedom is just as important as love, faith, and truth. And when freedom is hindered, it's not possible to be faithful, to be loving, and to be truthful. And that's what Satan, through his organizations on the earth, these religions and political systems, nations, that's what he restricts, and that's what he hinders. If he can restrict your freedom, it is not, he knows it's not possible for one to worship God. And that's what he wants. He doesn't want you to worship God or to follow from his standpoint, his nemesis, Christ Jesus. So please think about those things, and I'll come back at you guys tomorrow and talk about another thought-provoking topic. This is R. Jerome Harris from eProphetic.com. Thank you for listening.